So here's a take about living in South Florida that just needs to be said, and that's that living in Fort Lauderdale is way better than living in Miami. I know what you're thinking. Are you kidding me right now? Living in Fort Lauderdale over Miami? Now hear me out. Think about it. You know when you got that one little brother that grows up and kind of watches everything you do, he learns all your moves, learns your riz, things like that. All of a sudden, grows up to be better, smarter, more funny, more athletic, things like that. Well, that's how Fort Lauderdale is to Miami. For the longest time, Fort Lauderdale was Miami's little brother. However, it's starting to become that Fort Lauderdale is overtaking Miami. And in this video, we're going to talk about the couple reasons why living in Fort Lauderdale might just be better for you and your family than living in Miami. Before we do that, if you don't know, my name is Joe and I'm your South Florida realtor. So let me know in the comments down below. Do you think Fort Lauderdale is better than Miami, or do you think Miami is better than Fort Lauderdale? Let me know. But now let's jump right into it. Let's start off with the boating. Obviously, boating is big in both. I mean, let's be real, boating's big in all of South Florida. But there's a little bit of differences in the boating style and just kind of just overall general boating. So in Miami, boating is a little bit wild. I mean, there are a lot more wild boaters. A lot of it, I would say, are a lot more rented boats or charters. While in Fort Lauderdale, a lot more people, I feel like, own their boats, and you can tell a big difference. It's not as much of a party scene on the boats. Well, yes, there is some partying going on. There's a lot more fishermen and people going out to fish and just families overall in Fort Lauderdale on the water. However, there are some similarities. So like in Miami, we do have the Miami River with restaurants and bars and things along it that you can go and pull up on your boat. Same thing in Fort Lauderdale on the New River, kind of winding up through with a lot of restaurants over near Las Olas, things like that. Next up, let's talk about the space, and that's really the main reason that a lot of people choose Fort Lauderdale over Miami. Well, aside from the traffic, but everyone talks about the traffic, so we're not going to talk about that. But you can kind of just feel it. I mean, think about when you're going to park in Miami. Parking's tight, it's a pain in the butt, and it's just hard to get around in general. While in Fort Lauderdale, it's a lot more spread out, the lanes are a little bit wider, and you can actually kind of park your car. And if you have a truck, parking in Miami is a pain in the butt. If you have a truck, especially in Fort Lauderdale, you'll see a lot of people with 250s lifted, all souped up. They have no problem driving, they have no problem getting around, and they have no problem parking. But where it really comes into play with the space is the homes. You'll see a lot of people who live in Miami actually live in condos, while people who live in Fort Lauderdale mostly live in single family homes or townhomes. Yes, there are single family homes in Miami that are out east and on the water. However, they're a little bit more expensive. Most of those homes are further west. With that being said though, the median sales price here in Miami is $570,000, and they do go all the way up to $92 million. That's currently on the market when I'm making this video. In Fort Lauderdale, the median sales price is $505,000, and they do go all the way up to $88 million. Now let's talk about the nightlife. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. No one in the state of Florida is beating Miami nightlife. I mean, they have some of the most iconic nightlife spots that you can possibly think of. We're talking about 11, Space, Live, Story. I mean, those are all staples of not only South Florida, but Florida and nightlife in general. However, Fort Lauderdale's on the come up. Fort Lauderdale's a lot more tame when it comes to the nightlife scene. Yes, there are some great clubs as well. I mean, you got the Wharf, Backyard, and even Bodega, but Bodega's in Miami as well, so I don't know if that one really counts. However, where Fort Lauderdale really shines is more on the bar scene. It is a little bit slower pace of nightlife, not slower pace of life. Slower pace of nightlife, a little bit more tame. So like you have staples like Elbow Room, Blondie's, Riverside Market. It's just a little bit more calm, a little bit more chill. However, if you like clubbing and that, I'm not gonna lie, you gotta go to Miami, but you're also not too far. I mean, you could take the Brightline if you want. Brightline ride from downtown Fort Lauderdale to downtown Miami is 30 minutes, if that. And the tickets are pretty cheap as well. When it comes to the downtown areas, you have downtown Miami along with Brickell. I know Brickell is pretty much the financial district, and it's not necessarily downtown, but it's a short walk across the bridge. So we got to count it, like we got to lump them in together. South Beach is its own animal, but both areas are extremely walkable. I mean, there's a ton of stuff to do, restaurants, bars, shopping, you name it. It's all there. I mean, you have City Center in Brickell. I mean, you can literally do anything you want there, and they're open super late. Now on the flip side, in Fort Lauderdale, the downtown area is pretty much Las Olas Boulevard. Now, Las Olas is a lot more tame than both downtown and Brickell, and it's a lot smaller of an area. I mean, on one end, you have downtown, the financial district, and everything that's going on in Fort Lauderdale. On the other end, you have the beach. And in between, you have plenty of restaurants, shopping, and dining. I mean, you have things like the Cheesecake Factory, Fogo de Chao, El Camino, and then you also have like shopping, so you can go to like State and Liberty, Lululemon, there's little coffee shops. There's a lot of nice things in between, and it's a lot more calm and tame. You will see a lot more families out, I feel like, and it's not as just like clubbing and nightlife and things like that. Another big thing that a lot of people don't think about is in downtown Miami, you have what used to be the American Airlines Arena. Now it's what'd they rename it? The Kaseya Center, and that's where the Miami Heat plays. So you do have basketball right there. Fort Lauderdale doesn't have pro basketball, but like I said before, you just hop on the Brightline and you can get down there for a game, and you hop back on the Brightline with the buzzer beater train. It's really, really easy. And of course, you can't talk about South Florida without talking about the beaches. Obviously, Miami is really known for their beaches. I mean, Miami Beach and South Beach are pretty much a staple within American culture. However, Fort Lauderdale Beach is up there as well. I mean, Fort Lauderdale Beach is extremely popular. Nowhere near as crowded as like the Miami beaches. However, there are some like nice little pockets that are considered Fort Lauderdale beaches, even though they're other cities. So like if you're looking for some low-key ones, Dania Beach, Lauderdale by the Sea, those are some great ones. Even parts of like Hollywood Beach. I know Hollywood Beach, you start getting into like a mix of like Miami-Dade and Broward now, so we'll kind of throw that out. However, during spring break, Fort Lauderdale Beach does get pretty packed, and Miami beaches, for the most part during spring break, are wild as well. So you do have kind of similarities there, but for the most part overall, not nearly as packed, a little bit more calm, but you still have a lot of the like restaurants and like shops that are along the beach on A1A in both areas, so you still get that same type of feel. However, it's not as crowded and the parking's not as expensive. And I know we kind of talked about the space and the real estate a little bit earlier, but one thing I do want to touch on is the condo living. Now, when you think of Miami and Brickell, you think of high rises, beautiful views, awesome amenities, and that's really what Miami is known for. In the city of Miami, and like Miami in general, there's 221 different condo buildings that range from everything in size and amenities, from like the super small, like little mid-rises, all the way up to these towering skyscrapers with every single amenity under the sun, where you pretty much don't have to leave the building at all if you don't want to. On top of that, there's a ton of new buildings going in as well. I mean, there's plenty of buildings in the works. I think there's 14 total buildings in the works in just downtown Miami, featuring buildings like Elser, the Aston Martin residences, the 11 residences, which look unreal, and then also the Waldorf Astoria as well. And then that's not even including Brickell. So Brickell has 13 buildings in the works, including buildings like Cipriani, Una, Aura, St. Regis, as well as the Baccarat. And then when you think Fort Lauderdale, you don't necessarily think condos. There are a lot of apartment buildings and buildings for rent. However, we are starting to get more and more condos that are for sale here in Fort Lauderdale, because they're trying to compete with and stop being the little brother of Miami. So currently, there's 127 different condo buildings here in the city of Fort Lauderdale, with 8 new ones in the works, with buildings such as 6th and Rio, the Andari residences, Serene, as well as the residences at Pier 66. So all of these are going to rival that of buildings in Miami, and it starts to bring that attention, and people who like that condo living aspect in Miami and would really rather live in Fort Lauderdale, but there's just not a similar building there yet. Now they're going to come up and buy in Fort Lauderdale. Plus, they're not priced at the same way that some of the buildings in Miami are priced. I mean, think about it. When you have a Miami zip code and you're downtown Miami, you're paying a premium for being there in downtown or in Brickell. Now, obviously, Fort Lauderdale's got a lot to do to catch up to Miami. However, they are starting to get out of the shadow of being Miami's little brother. And there's a lot of great things going on here in Fort Lauderdale to kind of just be brought on the same level of Miami. Obviously, it's never going to be the same, I don't think, but I think it's nice to have a good mixture of being a little bit different and having your own style, but also being a little bit similar at the same time and taking different aspects. So, like I said before, please let me know in the comments down below, what do you think is better, living in Fort Lauderdale or living in Miami?